I must quote from this article which came in the Angawati Chem International Medicine earlier this year. If you have not seen this article, I would encourage all the students to read this article. This is an unusual article published in Angawati Chemie. This is basically a conversation between three theoretical chemists, Roald Hoffmann, Session Sheikh, and Henry Zabon. They are talking about the simplest molecule C2. You know, C2, two carbon atoms. How many bonds does it have? I will give you a simple quiz. F2, all of you know, fluorine. How many bonds does F2 have? Can anybody tell me? F2. How many bonds are there? Come on, students, are you all sleeping? F2 has one bond. How many bonds are there in O2? Oxygen. 2. Nitrogen? C2? If you go from fluorine, nitrogen, fluorine, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon, there should be 4, isn't it? And that's what they are discussing about. We don't know how many bonds are there, something 2, something 3, something 4. So this is discussing. And then Roald Hoffmann says we got widely different results. I like to show this to people who claim there is a good way to define a bond. Of course, they will tell me that I should use quantum theory of atoms and molecules analysis. And then Session Sheikh has never heard about them, so in case you have not heard about it, don't worry about this. Atoms and molecules theory, Satyamurthy Meno, Session Sheikh is a very famous theoretician. He had never heard about this theory before, so he says better define that. And Henry Arzappa says quantum theory of atoms and molecules. It's not done. I am taking it from the paper, so I didn't make this mistake. It's atoms and molecules, a method based on the topology of electrons has its use. Then Hoffmann replies, I was saying that tongue-in-cheek, Henry, I am no great fan of this theory. Out of the hundreds of papers that float the literature, I have yet to see them that makes a chemical prediction or suggest an experiment. I would like to prove him wrong. So Roald Hoffmann is a Nobel laureate. I will show you some prediction. I am almost hopeful it will be proved right based on atoms and molecules theory. Before that, let me show you what atoms and molecules theory shows for the same structure. Now the theory is a little complicated. Let me just tell you that red dot means a bond critical point. If you find a red dot between two atoms, that means they are bonded. You can see between this CH and this oxygen there is a red dot. And between this OH and this pi center there is a red dot. So we have two hydrogen bonds here. One is this CHO, another is this OH pi. Now when you have an intramolecular hydrogen bond like this, it's difficult to find out how strong each one is independently. If there is only one bond, you can break it and find it. There are two bonds, it's difficult. But when you do atoms and molecules theory, there is one way to get around this. You look at the electron density at this bond critical point. That gives a good measure of how strong the bond is. You can see both of them have very similar numbers, 0.011 and 0.013. This means both these bonds are almost the same strength. We have a CHO hydrogen bond, which is usually called a weak hydrogen bond. Here I have OH pi hydrogen bond, which is a strong hydrogen bond. And you can see in this particular case, both are almost the same strength. So we were quite pleased with this analysis. So when we wrote this paper, I gave a title saying CH can form a stronger hydrogen bond as OH. And of course, referee wanted me to change it. So that will be misleading. So we just changed the title again and said CH and OH as equal partners. That he didn't know. Then we looked at the phenylacetylene H2S. The reason we did this was when comparing water and H2S. I thought if you bring H2S to phenylacetylene, what will happen? These are the three possibilities. SH interacting with the pi, CH interacting with sulfur, and the structure very similar to water. And the rotational constants are, as you can see, very different. Now, the beauty about the microspectroscopy is once you measure the rotational constants, it's very easy to differentiate between the two. When we found the structure, it was not like water, famously. It had the H2S on top of the benzene. So this was very different. So not only water and H2S are different, like I told you, water has only 4 neighbors, H2S has 12 neighbors. But when they interact with another molecule like phenylacetylene, they interact differently. Then one day I was asking a student, do we really need 2 electrons or more to form a hydrogen bond? You know, like ethylene has a pi electron club, water has lone pair. Can 1 electron form a hydrogen bond? Then it turned out even methyl radical can form a hydrogen bond. This is a methyl radical interacting with hydrogen sulfide, SH carbon interaction. So you can form hydrogen bond with 1 electrons. Of course, serious theoreticians will be surprised by this because you can even form a covalent bond with 1 electron. The famous example is the H2 plus, which can form a stable bond with 1 electron. Then we are wondering, do we really need pi electrons, lone pair or unpaired electrons? Even sigma electrons can form hydrogen bond. These are the hydrogen molecule which is a sigma bond. That electrons can accept a hydrogen bond with HF. Then we are looking at the methane water. Now, whenever we talk about methane water complex, people think about the CH interacting with O. Because CHO interaction has become very popular. If you do atoms in molecule theory, you will find CH interacting with the oxygen at the next bond 52 point. But unfortunately, most of the people interested in this methane water system do not read microspectroscopy papers. So it has all the minimum is there, the bond critical point is there. Most of the theoretical papers talk about the CHO hydrogen bond in the system, but this is not the global minimum. This is not found in the experiment. Microspectrum of this complex was done in 1993 by the Institute for Standards and Technology. We didn't do that. They found the structure to be this, where the methane is interacting with water in a different way. OH is pointing towards the tetrahedral phase of methane. Basically, OH goes into the phase of methane. Of course, people even today, when they see papers on methane water, discuss only the CHO. But this is what the experiment shows. But as I told you, microspectroscopy cannot tell me how the interaction is. So it showed the structure to be like this. We did the atoms in molecule theory, we find the hydrogen connected to the carbon. So I was quite pleased because we have been working with the gas phase or organic chemistry, you will see this is a pentacoordinate carbon. Now this is something that's excited many people. Water forms H3O plus, ammonia forms NH4 plus, but methane does not form CH4 plus. This is something that's worried chemists for a long time. Can we form CH4 plus? So some gas phase spectroscopists like Takeshi Oka and David Nesbitt, they actually found CH5 plus. But when they found the CH5 plus, it was different. It was like CH3 plus closely interacting with H2 molecule. But I thought this is the closest one can come to CH5 plus. Of course, if you replace water by HF, you have a similar interaction. Now, microspectroscopy is being done for HF, water, HCN, HBr, HCl. All of them have very similar structure. So it's a very general interaction. So we thought this is a hydrogen bond in which OH is interacting with the face of a methane molecule and bonding to the carbon. I am doing the editorial advisory board of physical chemistry and chemical physics. We don't publish a lot of papers. They keep asking us to submit papers. So I thought this result is interesting. We sent it to the journal. It was rejected because one referee said this complex is already proven to be bound by dispersive forces. So this paper was rejected without any other reason. And as you can see, the editorial process, review process is very stringent. Even though I was in the editorial board, I could not get this paper published in this journal. And of course, as you will realize sooner, for every paper you write, you can find a journal to publish it. So eventually we sent it to chemical physics letter. This is the first time I had comments from the editor. Usually the referees will send good and bad comments. After we sent this paper, David Clark, who was the editor, sent a note thanking us for submitting it to CPA. He thought it's an important contribution. Now, when we do this kind of work, often I wonder, is there any relevance at all? Now, this structure is the minimum microspectroscopy has shown, but will we see this in any real structures? When I found this paper in 2011, This is methyl terminated silicon surface. Water is adsorbed and they think the interaction is like this. I have shown only one water, but there is one water on each methyl group. The absorption of water on this methyl terminated silicon surface follows this kind of interaction. And recently we have shown the iron pentacarbonyl. I am sure all of you are familiar with this molecule. It has a trigonal bipyramid ground state minimum. This bipyramidal structure is a saddle point. Iron pentacarbonyl is a flexible molecule which will keep switching the CO from axial to equatorial through a trigonal, this bipyramidal geometry. I realize this bipyramidal geometry should have a dipole moment. If you bring a hydrogen bond donor, it will form a stable complex. We tried the experiment, again it did not work. But as I already told you, even when the experiment doesn't work, theory works often. In fact, I requested Professor Viswanathan to try this in matrix isolation. Maybe they will be able to try. We could not do this in the microwave. But what is interesting is all of them were forming very strong complexes with about 300 wave number redshift. It's like a typically strong hydrogen bond. And you can see the iron pentacarbonyl ion is a negative ion. Usually when you have a metal interacting with water, metal will be the positive ion. In iron pentacarbonyl, because there are these 5 carbonyls which are pulling the electrons, it becomes a negative ion and it accepts a proton. So if you look at all this, water forms hydrogen bonds with rho pair, ethylene forms hydrogen bond with pi pair, methyl radical forms with the unpaired electron, H2 can form with sigma electrons, methane can form with the phase center, which is the electron with center, and of course even krypton can form a hydrogen bond because it is electronegativity close to 3. Krypton water complexes are known. So I thought hydrogen bond is the bond between electron deficient hydrogen and some electron rich region in another molecule. This is the definition we could come up with. It doesn't matter. You have some electron rich region anywhere in the molecule and you have electron deficient hydrogen. But when finally I found the IUPAC group, the group did not like this definition. They said we cannot define an electron deficient hydrogen. But then we looked at the H2S dimer. This is something we have not published yet. Its structure looks like this: water dimer and H2S dimer. They both look more or less the same. So that's why how many of you followed the experiments we do on a molecular beam with the temperature is 2-3 Kelvin. The pressure is very low. And we can form this kind of nice structures. Professor Viswanathan does here matrix isolation at maybe 10-20 Kelvin. So we can form this kind of structures. But none of this changes this. Okay. Water is still the liquid that's very important for life. H2S is still the stinking gas. We would rather be without H2S. Without water we cannot be, but H2S is something we would like to avoid. But because we wanted to understand, my students have been living with H2S. We look at many of the H2S complexes, and just recently I have seen some papers in biology. H2S has been identified as a neurotransmitter. How many of you know nitric oxide was found to be a neurotransmitter before? So there are some real uses of H2S as well. But then, this is true, water dimer and H2S dimer look the same, but this is also true. Solid water and solid H2S are very different. But after all, doing all this work, I was back to square one in the sense, this is still apples and oranges. That's why the referee was saying, please do not call it a hydrogen bond. Because we are saying H2S is forming a hydrogen bond. I thought after all this work, we are still somewhat unsettled. Then after long discussion, I told mostly Goswami, let's write a paper. This is what we had written. For a hydrogen bonded complex, the 0 point energy along any large amplitude vibrational coordinate that destroys the orientational preference for the hydrogen bonds to be significantly below the barrier along the coordinate, so that there is at least one bound level. Because I also read it now. How many of you really understood this term? Because it took me 10-15 years to write this sentence, but Einstein said, if you cannot explain this to your grandpa, you have not understood. I thought I have really understood, but let me try to explain what this sentence means. Basically, we have ethylene H2S, SH interacting with this pipe and comparing with argon 2 with H2S. That also has this interaction. So we have the H2S pointing towards the ethylene, and all this time people will be talking about this binding energy. Whether it is 0 kilocalorie, 1 kilocalorie, 5 kilocalorie, when ethylene and H2S break. I thought that's a useless criteria to define a hydrogen bond. What we should actually do is to look at the barrier for this motion. When the SH bond points away from the ethylene, and see, find out what is the energy for that. Then these are called torsional motions or internal rotation motions. Then find out where is the 0 point energy is. So basically, if you calculate the potential energy for this kind of motions and see where the 0 point energy is. All of you are familiar with 0 point levels, okay? You all learned about the vibrations. I will tell you, you don't even need to know that for understanding this. But finally, we did all these calculations. We published this PCCP. Basically, this is the potential. This is water. This is H2S with ethylene. You can see both of them have bound level. But if you look at argon and water, the potential is here. The energy level is here. So even though the potential minimum has a hydrogen bond, and atoms and molecules here you can show you as a hydrogen bond, there is really no hydrogen bond because the molecule is constantly rotating. If you have not understood this, I am sure you will follow with this one. All of you are familiar with this molecule, isn't it? This ethane. Now, ethane molecule is C2H6 is the formula, and there is one motion which we call as the Hindle rotation or torsional motion or internal rotation. When you can talk about eclipsed and staggered conformation, they are familiar with this, isn't it? If these two CH bonds are a top of so if these two CH bonds are on top of each other, we call them staggered. If they are like eclipsed, if it is like this, they are staggered. When you have this internal rotation, normally at room temperature, you have this kind of internal rotation. Suppose I increase the energy along this coordinate, it's going to have larger amplitude motion. If I increase it even further, now it's going to be almost like a free rotor. So one methyl group is rotating with respect to the other methyl group. When this happens, we cannot call it staggered or eclipsed. It's no longer staggered or eclipsed. Let me try showing it. All of you see this, isn't it? When the one methyl group is rotating very fast like this, we cannot call them staggered or eclipsed, but it's still ethane. That means the CC bond in ethane is not broken. It's still ethane, but staggered and eclipsed are meaningless rotation now. I realize this is basically the difference between water and H2S. In H2S, it's not that we don't have this kind of geometry. It's just that it keeps tumbling, so effectively it looks like a sphere. When I realized this, I told my student, let's look at the literature and see if anybody has looked at H2S at lower temperature. Now, often if you are a great scientist and if you make predictions, someone will come and prove in the future. If you are not a great scientist, someone may have already proved what you predict. And that's what happened in our case. In 2008, we were discussing this and I told my student, if we cool the H2S further, it should start looking like ice. Then we found out some physicists who do high pressure crystallography from Edinburgh University, they had already shown this. So I was telling you, the organic chemists don't read microwave spectroscopy papers, and I don't read physical letters. This is a physics journal. So we did not know about this paper, and we found out based on our gas phase experiment, I could have almost written this paper myself without doing the experiment. They say H2S is a good modern system where we can tune the hydrogen bond strength from oxygen or very weak to structurally significant. All they did was to reduce the temperature in H2S and of course increase the pressure as well. The same thing that happens for water at ambient conditions happens to H2S at much lower temperature. So the density obviously will now increase or decrease with the decrease in temperature. Like what happens for water at ambient conditions. So water has become the most important molecule for us because of global warming. So because we had carbon dioxide in the atmosphere already even before the industrialization, and the earth was at plus 30 degrees Celsius rather than minus 30 degrees Celsius, water was a nice liquid we need for living, and H2S has become a stinking gas. Suppose there was no warming at all, greenhouse effect at all, and you were at minus 30 degrees Celsius. Maybe water would have become a high boiling liquid and H2S has become an ideal molecule. But then of course I wrote to Ayub Park, told them that now that we have all this evidence, we should change the definition of hydrogen bond. Because anytime we tell someone to do something, they will ask you to do that. So they said, why don't you do that? I asked them, how do I do that? They said, we should form an international task group and come up with the definition. That's what we did. We read hydrogen bonds in attractive interaction between a hydrogen atom where X is more electronegative. I thought this is something all chemists and biologists would understand. If X is more electronegative, H would be somewhat positive, and any other atom or group, that's all this is. The main difference between this and the definition I showed from Pimentel and McClelland is that diboron would not be hydrogen bond because hydrogen is negative. We thought it is needed because we have a situation like this. Now this is ClF interacting with methane. Instead of hydrogen fluoride, we have a ClF. So this is called a halogen bond now. Suppose you get a hydride here, like potassium hydride. This will still be a halogen bond because Cl is positive and hydrogen is negative in potassium hydride. So this is more like a convention, like driving on the left and driving on the right. There is nothing sacred about either of them. As long as we have some convention and follow this, we will say we have the same name for same molecule. That's the purpose of IUPAC. This is a methane ClF complex, and this is the hydrogen molecule interacting with sodium fluoride. It's called a sodium bond. Now you can see hydrogen, chlorine and lithium bonding. This electron density is the binding energy. But you can see the difference between lithium and hydrogen and chlorine. This is because lithium chloride is ionic, hydrogen and chlorine are covalent. You can see this difference. But what's interesting is I also wrote a review for annual reviews of physical chemistry in 2011 that has this table: lithium, beryllium, magnesium and neon. They look at the lithium to beryllium to magnesium to and neon to. This is the distance and the binding energy. Beryllium is somewhat unique. The distance between two beryllium atoms is much smaller than the lithium and magnesium. The energy is in between. If you look at the van der Waals radii, it's much smaller. Here it's almost the same. Magnesium is van der Waals, lithium is of course covalent or ionic, beryllium is neither. Of course, chemists don't worry about this kind of metallic clusters. If not, I just wrote a beryllium bond may have been defined to differentiate lithium, magnesium and neon from beryllium. Then I found out within a few months, Russell Boyd published a paper with beryllium bond. He showed BeF2 with water has a BH2 water, very similar interaction. Beryllium is negative, oxygen is, beryllium is positive here, oxygen is negative. So I was looking at the periodic table, if you look at hydrogen, Sometimes people will put hydrogen on the first group for the 7th or 17th group. Fluorine and lithium or chlorine and lithium. I have shown lithium sodium bonds. We know halogen bonds. But of course, now this group sulfur, selenium, they are all supposed to form what is called a chalcogen bond. Nitrogen, phosphorus, they call them a nicogen bond. It will be beryllium bond. So something can there be a carbon bond. So we have lithium bonding, halogen bonding, nicogen, chalcogen, beryllium bonding. All of them have been discussed now. Something can there be a carbon bond. And we are led to it when we look at this propargyl alcohol. We will be just talking in a few years. Propargyl alcohol molecule, C3H3OH. We look at the structure of this complex. I will just show you the final structure without showing all the spectra and how we arrived at it. Here the OH is goes to the C triple bond C. Argon goes here. Then we did the atoms and molecules analysis to find out what kind of interactions we have. The OH is interacting with the argon. Argon is also interacting with this electron rich region. Of course, we thought this makes sense. We wanted to look at this where the OH is trans to the CC group. This is the global minimum and we could not find this at all in the experiment. This trans structure is only a kilocal per mole above this, but we could not find this in the experiment. But we could still do the theory. We found argon interacting with this. Then we did the atoms and molecules here, it was also interacting with the carbon. I was somewhat surprised. Here I expected it because there are some pi electrons here. I was wondering why is this argon interacting with the carbon here. Then I told my student to do argon methanol, which is very similar. So there is no pi electrons here. It also had the same interaction. We were somewhat surprised. This is why Roald Hoffmann was subjecting to atoms and molecules series. Sometimes it throws up results like this, which doesn't make sense. Then I thought, let's not worry about this, let's just look at methanol. Now this is the electrostatic potential of methanol. I had shown this before. In methane, red is electron rich, blue is electron deficient. Methane, I showed you this electron rich regions can accept a hydrogen bond. If you put a OH group, remove one hydrogen, put a OH group, this is where the oxygen is red region electron rich, but that makes the CH3 phase electron deficient. If you look at the methane, this phase is electron rich, but in methanol it's electron deficient. Then I realize if water comes through this phase now, the hydrogen won't come, but the oxygen should come because this is electron deficient. So we did some work and we found out that was indeed the case. Oxygen is coming towards the carbon. Then we did the atoms and molecules theory analysis. You can indeed see a bond critical point connecting oxygen to the carbon. We found it, I was quite excited. Remember, hydrogen bond has OHO. Now I have OCO. It looked very similar to me. Then we thought, let's see if it is general. And indeed it turned out to be general. We looked at water, ammonia, PS3, HF, HCl, lithium fluid, all of them form very similar complex. The methyl phase interacts with some electron rich region in every complex. So we can find an analog for a hydrogen bond in all these complexes. Methyl fluoride, methanol, methyl chloride, all of them do. So this is our typical hydrogen bond FH water. This is a halogen bond with HCl water, and now we have methyl fluoride water. So we thought we'll call it a carbon bond. And of course, again, referees were not happy, but finally all of them accepted. And this time I do not need to change. So this paper is just coming, the title is carbon bond. Now what's interesting is, everything you find in a hydrogen bond. Like here you find a redshift in HF, you can find a redshift in CLF. Here you will find n sigma star overlap between the oxygen lone pair and the sigma star orbital. Here you can find a interaction between the CF sigma star and the oxygen lone pair. And the distance between carbon and oxygen is less than the van der Waals sum. The distance between hydrogen and oxygen is less than the van der Waals sum. So we see everything you find for a hydrogen bond in this kind of complexes. What's even more interesting is if you look at this, I know how many of you read about hydrophobic interactions. There are a lot of people